Frank's Red Hot is the perfect blend of flavor and heat, so you can use an entire bottle to make recipes like buffalo chicken dip or buffalo nachos, or even things that don't start with buffalo. Frank's Red Hot, I put that on everything.
Hey, Craig.
To singing for that one. Yeah. Because, hey, the Cougs fucking, since we last recorded, 2 goddamn road wins.
This would have been the night to do the actual singing intro. Like, we just go, ba, 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 da, 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 ba, ba.
Yeah, you had to go the old school one.
Ba, ba, da, 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 ba. Start spreading the news. The Cougs are leaving on, I don't know, Sunday.
Probably Sunday.
I didn't really think this all the way through, Craig.
In the concrete jungle where dreams are made of. Can they beat Texas A&M? Probably. All right. Well, this is episode 163 of Podcast versus Everyone. I am Craig Powers. With me is Jeff Nusser. And Jeff, that last night, watching that Cougar stomping of BYU, our Cougars stomping of BYU, the other Cougars who use our Go Cougs hashtag because we let them. But
yeah, well,
in front of that hostile crowd, given like how like crazy that crowd was, that's the most fun I've had watching a Cougar basketball game on TV in like years. Yeah. Like how just into the crowd was great. Like they were into it. They were mad. They were loud for an NIT game, which was awesome. There was 11,000 people in there, and it did not faze WSU one bit, and definitely didn't faze Michael Flowers. Or Deshaun Jackson, and that was a blast and the best win of the year. Like, it took this long,
we just keep racking up the best win of the year.
The quad one wins, baby. We got those 2. You think we'll get in now? We got the quad one wins.
Well, we're ranked higher than a bunch of teams that got in the tournament now.
We're ranked higher than a few teams that are still in the tournament.
I know. We still, let's see, we're ahead of Iowa State. I know that one.
Miami, and of course St. Peter's.
Yes, St. Peter's.
St. Peter's is yet to crack the top 100.
And we're only 1 spot behind Providence.
Still in terms of on Campom, the luckiest team in America.
Number one luckiest team is number 32. The number 340 luckiest team is number 33.
If we had Providence's luck, I think we would actually have a better record than them.
I think that's probably pretty likely.
Because we would get 27% on our win percentage. So for 22 out of 36 right now, 6. So we'd go from 61% winning percentage to 88% winning percentage. So what's that, like 33 out of 36? No, that's probably 32 out of 36.
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah, so that's, so yeah, that's
so
exactly, 32 out of 36. So we'd be 32 and 4, and definitely would be going to the Elite 8 right now.
I think so.
But yeah, so that's good job, Providence. At least they're still winning. You got to give them that credit.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. Just like
feel free to go beat Kansas.
They are alive. Yeah, they are alive. Just like the Washington State Cougars are still alive.
The only Division I team in Washington that is still playing basketball.
God, just a damn shame, isn't it?
Yep.
Somebody's got to carry the torch, Craig. Somebody's got to do it.
Let's talk about these games. This SMU game, this BYU game, both like pretty similar in the way that WSU asserted themselves. They're playing smaller teams, different strengths, definitely. BYU, despite its lack of size, actually plays like a bigger team because they're that 6'8" big he's wide and he's athletic and he was tough to deal with. But outside of that, our guards made it tough on their guards. Now SMU's Davis went for 30, but they weren't letting him create as much. They weren't letting him set up his teammates as much. He was having to work for that 30. I mean, he had
to hit a bunch of mid-range jumpers just to do that.
Just a bunch of it. And then you saw they forced who's the kid from BYU, their point guard, Barcello, into a ton of mid-range shots that he missed, a lot of them. He really likes those floaters. He made some. He missed a lot of them. He ended up with like a 75 offensive rating, largely being guarded by Ty Roberts. And Ty Roberts checked Davis. I was thinking maybe they could have put a taller player on Davis and maybe he wouldn't have made all those shots. But what Roberts does is he stays in front of guys, so you don't have to help. And so you're not getting burned on dump offs and kickouts. So, you see, I kind of wanted to start with like I mentioned Roberts and we mentioned Flowers. Both of them have really in the NIT have taken a step, played the way that probably the coaching staff would have hoped they would have played all year.
Yeah.
Ty has really been, even despite his size, a very solid defensive player. And he's been, he was very aggressive in getting a shot against Santa Clara, but the last two games, he kind of let the game come to him a little more, shot open looks, was a little more efficient. And then the last two games, Flowers, just, what can you say? Like a killer. Like, fucking assassin. Like, Jesus.
Yeah. It's like something. So I think it feels like with Roberts that something like kind of finally clicked. He finally kind of figured out how to strike that balance between, because both of our guards were, before they got to Pullman, were strictly scoring guards, like high volume scoring guards. And then they were asked to, really essentially be combo guards, right? Like, Flowers was really sort of turned into a point guard. He was turned into a point guard. And then Roberts, was, if not strictly turned into a point guard, definitely asked to do more point guard type things, right? Like not just, put your head down and score. So for both of them, there was an adjustment period. And Kyle Smith likes to talk about with Roberts, he kind of makes the case that nobody else is really giving enough credence to the fact that he played zero basketball last year. He sort of keeps bringing that up over and over and over again. And I don't know how many of our fans actually know that. He sat out last year. He was a COVID opt-out last year. Didn't play at all.
Yep.
So when he wasn't even really practicing, right? So really what he was doing was, working out on his own. And there's just, there's definitely something to be said for the rust that comes along with that. And, I think I probably did not give that enough weight. Kyle Smith likes to remind people of it. And, it's probably true. And it feels like, at some point in the last, maybe half dozen games, something just kind of finally clicked, where he just, stopped maybe thinking so much, started recognizing the advantages that presented themselves when he could, get to the rim, and instead of maybe just, kind of worrying all the time. And then the other thing with him that I've noticed is, he's real hard on himself. Like, he wants to do really well. He wears his emotions on his sleeves. And, there were times this year where he was sort of, pretty down on himself, and would kind of beat himself up, out on the court. And it seems like we've sort of moved past that finally, where even if he makes a bad play, like, against BYU, I mean, there was one where he, he got in there and there wasn't really anywhere to go, but, instead of like kind of beating himself up over, he just kind of, clapped his hands and ran down the floor and, and kind of set himself up to play defense, because that's what was needed. And, so it just kind of feels like he is seeing the floor a lot better. And then Flowers, same deal, maybe a little bit different way, but, for him, it felt like he went from, like we said, being a high volume scorer to needing to be a point guard. And it seems like he took that, that role very, very seriously, and wanted to be, the best point guard possible for his teammates and everything else, at times to the exclusion of his scoring. Right. And it's like, again, in the last half dozen games or so, he just has sort of figured it out. Like, okay, this is the balance. Like, I can be a point guard over here, but then I also have a good feel for, when it's okay to just kind of go score. It's just, man, those two guys doing what they're doing has been just really an unbelievable combination. There have been plenty of times this year where Roberts has made me crazy at times. I'm just like, oh my gosh, he's just so small. And, there are just sort of natural issues that come along with, being small in stature. Right. And with Flowers, it was just like, man, I just wish he'd be a little more assertive. And it's just like, it's so fun to watch. The season is so short, right? 30 games is just not very long. And now that we've gotten some bonus games and you just finally see them coming into their own, it's fun as hell to watch them figure it out.
Absolutely. And and Flowers, he's got kind of a, an interesting looking jump shot, and he can be very streaky, but man, when he hits that streak, wow, like, he is such a good tough shot. I've said this before. He's such a good tough shot maker. Like, and when he gets rolling, it's so fun to watch. He hit some like really tough mid-range shots, some step back threes. They've been that play, that inbounds play where he inbounds and then gets a ball screen and then takes a three in the corner. They got 7 points off of that play, because he hit a 3-on-1 and he hit 3-and-1 on another one. Yeah. So like that works really well for them, because he's got a quick release, and it just works really well. If he just has that little bit of separation, he can hit threes if he's bothered a little bit, and he leaps on. The good thing about him, he jumps on his shot. Like, he gets higher and he kind of shoots from a high angle. So, yeah. So he doesn't need that much space, and. Again, in both these games, he just went on stretches where he buried the other team. And then Ty had his own stretch against BYU after not scoring in the first half. So you had this stretch where Ty was hitting everything, followed by Mike hitting everything, and we just absolutely buried BYU after they had pulled within 3.
Yeah, it was crazy. That one play, by the way, that you mentioned, the 4-point play. Yeah. Where he hit the 3 in the corner. That was actually the third 3 of the possession, and was just sort of like the perfect encapsulation of our offense. Like, we're not always going to hit all the shots, but we are going to be relentless. We're going to get offensive rebounds. And if you give us enough looks, eventually we're going to get one. That was maybe the most fun possession, I think.
And then it was always also the one that set the program record for threes in a season, which
that's a pretty cool deal.
He is. I mean, the way he's played the last 2 games in hostile environments, two of the toughest environments they've played in all year. Because let's be honest, those Pac-12 gyms were not that tough this year. Like, UW was pretty packed when I was there, but yeah, it's just like just to be unfazed by it, that's a 24-year-old dude, right? So he's not being bothered.
He's been everywhere. He's seen everything, man.
Yep. So, and now, he's, the way he was talking after the game, like winning, it may not be the NCAA championship, but winning this tournament would mean a lot to him.
Well, he's played on shitty teams his whole career.
Yeah.
Like, he's been on bad teams his whole career. He hasn't won shit, And so to be in this position, man, he's just, you can see why they picked him as captain, right? I mean, he's so calm, he's so collected, and he did not have a good start to the game. Like, no. It was, he
no
missed
one did.
A few threes. No one did, except for Deshaun. But
I think they missed their first 6 threes. Start.
Yeah, like he missed threes and had a drive to the basket that got blocked / fouled, and just like it wasn't great. And then and he's just sort of steady Eddie. He's mature, and nothing's gonna intimidate him too much. And again, I think there were times early this year where he would sort of take that. Well, I had a rough start, and maybe fade back a little bit. Let me feed my teammates. That's not what this team needs. And he just kind of went, I got this. And just tremendous leadership, tremendous playing, tremendous shooting.
Let's be honest. It helps that we've played teams with smaller guards. It's easier for him to get shots up. It's easier for him to get mid-range shots. And the next game's going to be the same. And so And one thing we have to talk about, this team is playing, obviously, its best basketball of the year. They've now beaten 2 top 60 teams in KenPom on the road in a row. After beating a top 75 team in KenPom at home.
And beating them soundly.
All of them barely, by double digits.
Soundly.
None of them were, a team's always going to make a run. We shouldn't fret too much about that, especially a team at home. Yep. And it's amazing. Neither BYU and SMU both made runs in the second half at WSU. Neither had the ball at any point with a chance to tie the game. Like they never. So SMU got within 4. Never had the ball when they were within 4. BYU got within 3. Ty Roberts immediately hit a 3, and they never put us up 6, and they never looked back. So and we always love to look at the start chart. So when BYU did cut it to 3, we did dip down to 55% chance to win. But they immediately went on a 15-2 run to basically put the game away. And what's crazy, they're playing this well, and a lot of it is because that depth that we were excited about at the start of the season is finally here. They can mix and match players until they find the players that work.
Yep.
Deshaun's here. Maybe Mo and Efe are having a hard time taking advantage in the post of these smaller forwards. Well, guess who is damn good at that? Deshaun, who now has up to an 111 offensive rating this year, because he's not turning the ball over like he did last year. He's hitting shots over 50, almost 55%, which he was under 50% last year. So he's just improved a bunch, and he's just taking advantage. Those 6'8" and then 6'9" dudes that were on him, who were it was either a 6'8" dude or a 6'9" dude that's given up weight, and he just turned and he scored on them, and he used his post moves. Had some nice footwork. Sometimes didn't even use the footwork, just went straight up and scored, which is nice to see him be that aggressive. We saw him make a nice finish off a catch, which he was so good at last year. And it was nice to see him be able to do that again. He's getting his confidence back, and he was really fired up. But then you still have Efe and Mo, who are these fucking crowd killers with the dunks that they do. Efe
and the block shots, too.
The block shots that they do, which won the refs twice in a row, 2 games in a row. They make such incredible blocks, the refs just can't even believe it.
Can't believe it. Yeah, the one where Gay blocked the shot that was on its clearly on its way up. Like it had barely, but it was so close
under
to
the rim still.
Yeah,
it was
so
got up
close to the
so
rim,
quick
they
and
couldn't
so
figure it
long.
out. I know.
Although I will say he did put his hand on the rim, so I thought maybe that's why they called it. But the ball was already flying away from the rim, so I don't even know.
The ball was not in the cylinder when he touched the rim.
Yeah. So exactly.
Yeah.
But it was.
And then, it's
But
crazy.
so you have those three bigs. You can rotate. You don't have to stick with one if he's not working. Because like Mo was in foul trouble against SMU. Who cares? You still have FA. You still have Deshaun. Oh, maybe you want to go smaller. Well, you can rotate out Bamba and Yakumovsky and Rodman and figure out who works. And guess what? We found out Rodman working really well. And he's been fully healthy. He hasn't missed many games, but he's definitely not been fully healthy. And I still don't think Yaki's fully healthy. But Bamba's missed games. He's been recovering from injuries. Deshaun's been recovering from injuries. FA at the start of the year was recovering from injuries. But we're as healthy as can be, healthy as we've been all year right now. And so they're not stuck with the 6 guys or 7 guys. They can play all 9 of these guys and figure out during the game which lineup works best, which combinations are working best. And they just let that ride. And they've been able to go on these big runs. They've been able to avoid these scoring droughts that have plagued them because they don't have dead legs. They're not relying on one guy to score, and so it's, they can take Noah out if he's struggling offensively, right? Like, which he
as he was last night.
Yeah. And so, and you have Bamba that can play the defense that Noah plays. And it was sometimes even better. You can have Rodman that plays that great man-to-man defense and rebounds really well against like bigger dudes and stuff. So it's fun that they have this philosophy that they've used all season that's coming to fruition. Even against a really good defensive rebounding team, they were able to get offensive rebounds last night. And it's cool to see a lot of this stuff. People may shit on the NIT, but this is like a reward for all of us that have watched this team all year struggle and never be whole. They're finally whole, and now they're 14-3 with their top 9 players. And and they could very well win this whole fucking tournament. Because they're I think the highest rated team still in it. So it's they're up to 33 on KenPom. They started the NIT at 55.
Yeah,
that's how well they've played.
And we see this sort of thing every year, right, with the NCAA tournament. And this is what we saw with the Pac-12 last season with the KenPom ratings, because all of a sudden you get this chance to play really good teams, right? And so, if you win, you play another really good team, and if you win that, you play another really good team. So, there's a chance for your ratings to kind of skyrocket, and that's what the Cougars are doing now. At the end of the Pac-12 tournament, I texted you and was like, Kyle Smith's record of always being better at the end of the year than he was at the beginning of the year is a little bit in jeopardy at this point. Definitely not in jeopardy anymore. So they got this in the bag.
Well, and it feels like we've heard that from someone talking to KenPom and stuff, that when they have their top 9 before they went on this run in the regular season, when they had their top 9, they were roughly around at number 35 on KenPom. So this 33 right now is kind of just a true talent when they have all their players. And now it's kind of a high expectation to have all your players all year. But some teams get that. Honestly,
Arizona got that.
In WSU's 2 big seasons under Tony Bennett, they had that. They had their players playing. They had injuries. Sorry, I don't know if people heard me knock over my microphone. I talk with my hands.
Got very excited. Very excited.
Those Tony Bennett teams had big time injuries the seasons before when they were under Dick Bennett. They were healthy. The players got better. It's exciting to watch. I don't want to get too much into what next year looks like because they have at least one more game. But
this season's not over.
Yeah. But yeah, let's talk about the next game. Let's talk about Texas A&M. It's kind of crazy how there's a lot of similarities between Texas A&M and SMU, and then there's some similarities with BYU as well, like in terms of like the size of the players.
Yep.
It's weird how we keep getting paired against these teams in the NIT with like small guards and small front courts. So we're not getting killed by another team's big guards, and then we can take advantage with our big front court. And
yeah,
I can see that with
might be why
SMU.
All these teams are in the NIT.
Exactly.
Didn't make it to the NCAA tournament.
But you kind of expect that when you play like the WCC and American Athletic Conference teams, because maybe they're not getting the bigs as much, and they often will have these like kind of wider bodied, shorter bigs, because they can survive with that in their leagues like pretty easy. But it's kind of weird to see Texas A&M. Texas A&M, their most common, their two most common lineups over the past 5 games. You either got a 6'8" guy playing center or a 6'6", 201 guy playing center. You get a 6'4" or a 6'6" guy playing power forward, and then a 6'5" guy at small forward, and 6'2", 6'0" point guard, shooting guard, and point guard. Like that, these players definitely profile as quick, and they definitely profile as attacking type players that go to the basket. They have quick hands. They steal the ball. But shooting over them is not going to be an issue. And that teams that have like 6'5" guards give Flowers and Roberts on offense a hell of a time. But that's not going to be like this. It's not going to be an issue here. And then we can match up height wise with them easily across the board. And you had mentioned something to me earlier that's like Texas A&M is kind of like a mirror of us, and I wanted you to talk about that a little bit, how they're a mirror of WSU.
Yeah, I mean they I don't even remember what I said now that I'm thinking about it.
Well, so
that sounds terrible. That is good radio right there, folks. What did I say? I don't even remember. So
basically, we were talking about, look at their 4 factors, man. So they're very similar to WSU. They don't shoot very well. They crash the offensive glass. So offensively, they profile very similarly. Yeah. Defensively, they don't rebound very well. We don't rebound very well defensively. They don't rebound very well at all defensively. Really poorly. One of the worst defensive rebounds in the country.
Extremely
rebound teams in the country. But they are more extreme in how they get turnovers. So they have similar strength, and then they're good at preventing high field goal percentages. They're good at forcing tough shots. So they have some similar strengths to WSU on both sides of the ball, just some like more extremes, and then WSU takes care of the ball better. So that's
a lot better.
Yeah,
a lot better. They're not great at taking care of the ball, and of course we're pretty darn good at forcing turnovers. Now they are one of the best teams in the country at forcing turnovers. Mm-hmm. However. One of the things I like to do when I'm on Ken Palm and trying to kind of figure out what a team's story, kind of actually is. I love clicking the little conference only button, to kind of be like, what did they do in their conference? Because
they do against competition.
Yes. And, so what did we do against Pac-12? What did they do against the SEC? Those are pretty similar conferences in terms of, quality. So, okay, where did they rank on those things? And really kind of what I see is that, a lot of their metrics that weren't great overall, actually were even worse in conference. So like, for example, their offensive rebounding, they were 13th in the SEC in offensive or defensive rebounding percentage. So opponents were rebounding 35% of their misses. And then they, put the other team on the line a ton. Now they still did generate a lot of turnovers. So that is a thing, I guess that would give us a little bit of pause. But when I look at WSU, well, we were the number 2 team in the Pac-12 in terms of taking care of the ball. Like there was nothing really fake there where we didn't take, or we took really, really, really good care of it in non-conference and then kind of took care of it in conference. And then our overall numbers, sort of balance out. What it looks like with Texas A&M is there's a lot of things that they're good at where they were really, really good in non-conference and maybe just like okay in conference. Whereas with us, it feels like, what we were good at before, we were good at in conference too. So when I think about things like the turnovers, right? So we are superior at taking care of the ball. A&M is really, really good at forcing turnovers. That is a thing that generally favors the team that is really good at taking care of the ball. Yeah. It's kind of like a quarterback throwing interceptions,
especially if,
right?
If they're athletically similar, I would say.
Yes. So a quarterback, a quarterback is the one who ultimately decides whether he throws an interception. For the most part, right? Like how much risk does he take with the throw? Does he throw it at all? Right? If he never throws the ball, then he can't throw an interception, right? So it's kind of like that in basketball too, where it's like, the offense is the one that's really they're the ones that hold the ball. They're the ones that are in control of where they turn it over. And teams that are very good at taking care of the ball tend to still be very good at taking care of the ball against teams that typically force turnovers. So I feel really good about that matchup. And then, we've seen over these, 3 games already, just how big of a weapon the offensive rebounding is and what that does for the offense, and how that just, deflates opponents to an extreme degree. I don't know, man. I love this matchup for us. Texas A&M is a good offensive rebounding team, but
I would be disappointed if WSU didn't get to like 40% offensive rebounds on this game.
Yeah. Yep. Especially on a neutral floor. Again, we're not traveling this time. Neutral floor should be, we hope, kind of a neutral whistle.
For some reason, Ken Pom has it as a away game.
He did. It's fixed now. It's fixed.
No, it's not. Not anymore.
It's not?
It went back. It went
back.
Yeah.
It was fixed.
It was fixed, and now it's. I've talked to him about these things. It's like a service that just auto populates. Yeah. So
Texas A&M is probably the home team in the game.
Yeah.
Obviously,
I think they're higher seeded. I think they're like a 2 or a 1.
Yes, yeah, they are. They're yeah.
But yeah, it is like, Texas A&M, but you cannot discount that in the last month they beat Alabama, they beat Mississippi State, they beat Auburn, they beat Arkansas.
Yep.
They beat Wake Forest very handily. That was at home.
Yep.
But they're definitely playing well. So are we. I think both these teams are kind of playing their best basketball of the year right now.
Yep.
So that should make it even more fun. Like this is going to be as quality basketball as like some of the conference the NCAA tournament games. Like this is,
and they are really well coached. Like we're facing a really well coached team. It's going to be fun. It's exactly what it is.
Yep. Yeah. And this is
it'll be a fight for sure.
Yeah, so I'm looking for us to crush the offensive glass, limit turnovers. That limits some of their scoring opportunities too. Just make it impossible for them to shoot the ball inside the paint. They do not like shooting 3-pointers.
Pretty good likelihood.
They do not like shooting 3-pointers.
They're going to have a tough time. Yeah.
They're 251st.
We got very excited. Yeah, we got very excited when SMU we were playing SMU because of how many times they get their shots blocked. Yeah, Texas A&M gets their shot blocked even more often than that. So,
and they give up a lot of steals, and we know a lot of guys have quick hands. A lot of our bigs have quick hands.
Yep.
So yeah, there's some things. So I like to see us block a lot of shots. I like to see us dominate the offensive glass, and limit their ability to score. I could see, just hold them down shooting. They got 2 knockdown 3-point shooters, Gordon and Radford. The rest of the guys are, solid, but they take a lot of them, so they must be decent at times, But they have Wade Taylor, dominates the ball offensively. He's a 6-foot freshman guard. I like, that's the type of guy like that. That's a good matchup for Ty. He can keep that guy out of the lane. Quentin Jackson, the wing, Noah and Bamba, put them on him. See if they can keep him out of the lane. So this should be fun. Let's not play a zone. We barely played a zone against BYU. I think there was only like 2 possessions where they played a zone.
Yes.
They got a turnover,
forced one
and
bad
a 3-pointer.
Shot. Yeah, and a 3-pointer. So
yeah.
I guess
so
that sounds okay
bad.
Until you're like, that's 1.5 points per possession.
1.5 points per possession, and they only had for the game they had 0.89. I did want to say like the defense was really struggling down the stretch of the regular season and Pac-12 tournament. They were going over 1 point per possession a bunch, even in their wins against Oregon State. Like, it wasn't that good. But in the NIT, their defense has been as good as has been all season. Just frustrating the hell out of it, SMU and BYU in particular. They just could not get things going. They had to make, SMU in particular had to make really tough shots to stay in the game. And BYU just ultimately didn't make that many tough shots. And it's really cool to see. And that's also part of having that full squad. You can rotate players and keep them fresh. And, if there's foul trouble, it doesn't kill you. It's awesome. I'm excited for this game. This is a really fun matchup. And I like WSU's chances.
Yeah, I love our chances. I feel great about where the defense is at. Like you said, to me, there's not much more fun than watching an opponent just sort of like watching their shoulders sag and watching their heads, kind of tilt down because they just are like, they just have no answers. They're just like, we are out of ideas of how to attack this. We can't get it near the rim. Every time we pass the ball around the perimeter, we got, some little guy in our shorts. It's like, and then, you miss a shot and they gobble up the rebound. It's just, it is a tough assignment right now. Teams playing us and, I don't know, man. It's hard to see a way where A&M, I mean, obviously A&M can win the game. I'm not trying to say they can't win the game, but I don't know, man. I have a hard time imagining them, being all that successful against us, particularly offensively. Maybe it just turns into a total rock fight and, it just ends up kind of being that way. But I can't, I have a hard time imagining Texas A&M having a real successful offensive day after watching these teams, these last 2 teams, really just the 3 teams really get just super frustrated trying to do anything and being unable to do anything. And then just watching the body language as they just continually are like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Every time I get near the rim, somebody rejects my shot. Like there was a dude, the BYU dude, the 6'6" freshman who's a really nice player and had a great start to the game. But in the second half, he went up for what he thought was a pretty wide open dunk, and FA just sort of, reached up and erased it, as the ball was almost ready to go into the basket. So, we're just doing what we're doing right now is special and fun and, pretends really well for next year. I know we're not, thinking too much about next year, but it's exciting, man. This is just, it's fun. It's exciting. It has value, man. The players are just totally jacked up about it. Noah Williams records a video of the celebration in the locker room. And then at some point takes it down because Kyle Smith is running around with his shirt off So, which was a little
So
disconcerting.
I watched the whole video. Smith took his shirt off because he knew he was going to get doused with water. And then he was trying to put it back on, but he's like, wait, you don't try to put a shirt on when it's wet. Like, so you just couldn't get it back on. It's pretty funny. Yeah, I will say, so TJ Bamba, who played a bit in Colorado, whenever we play in Colorado, he goes off. How's he going to, maybe he's ready to go off in New York City, where he played even more. Like, so, so it's, I'm excited. He seems one of the guys that's very, very excited to play. Hopefully that doesn't hurt him, but he's kind of, he's not a guy that seems to let his emotions get to him too much. So hopefully he can elevate his game, and have a big one in the Garden. And Smith, going back to New York, John Anderschek, Derek Phelps, all guys that have spent time in New York or from New York. So it's cool. Our team has some connections to New York City, and they very clearly were motivated by that and have gotten there. And hopefully that motivation's still there to win.
And it's still special to play there, man. Like, and this is, it's probably not lost on them. Somebody's going to tell them at some point that, this is the last one they're playing in MSG. Like, there won't be another NIT there. And plus, the team's, I assume, never going to, like, I'm sure they're thinking, like, okay, well, we're never coming back here. So let's go ahead and go win it. It's obviously, we talk about, everybody jokes about there's too many bowl games, and it's like bowl games, we joke, bowl games are meaningless, but they're not meaningless to the players. And, the NIT is the same deal. Like, it's the NIT. It's a secondary thing, but it's like, you and I being soccer fans, like it's like trophy, man. Like who cares if it's secondary or whatever? Like, we went through the whole
US
Leagues
Open
Cup thing with the Sounders. Yeah. Or US Open Cup. It's like, these things are secondary, but like, it's still fucking cool to win a trophy. So let's go win a fucking trophy. Like, and the players are clearly, excited about that prospect. And, I'm having tons of fun. But, Sarah and I were looking up airline tickets and kind of trying to see like, how good is it? And then they're pretty cheap right now, still.
If I wasn't getting married, and probably my wedding is part of your calculation too. If I wasn't getting married and paying for a wedding, and then also traveling to said wedding, I'd probably be going and using my PTO up for that too. I'd probably be headed there because like $300 round trip. And there's like 1 million hotels in New York City. I definitely saw some pretty good deals for some pretty decent hotels. So if you're still thinking about it, go ahead and check. Those direct flights on Alaska are pretty good. I will say so. There's one question Amanda posed to me, and I wanted to ask you. She asked me because she just saw me having a ball watching us crush BYU last night, and she could just see how good of a mood I was. She's like, "So, would you rather get this deep tournament run in the NIT, or get a low seed, a crappy seed?" She said a crappy seed in the NCAA tournament and lose in the first round. And I immediately said the NCAA tournament.
Yes.
And then she asked, would you rather win the NIT? And I still said the NCAA tournament.
Yes.
And my reasoning is because these wins would have happened earlier. If we were in NCAA tournament, we would have gotten 4 incredible wins during the season. We would have beaten, maybe Arizona or UCLA. Right. We would have beaten USC. We would have probably Boise State, but we wouldn't have lost to South Dakota State, whatever. Like, so we're having a much better time throughout the year if we get to NCAA tournament. This is just, hey, we're here and it's fun. And that was my thinking. I don't know what you think on that.
Totally the same. This is great and totally fun, and I'm having a great time with it, and it's exciting, and it's like, this is not shade toward the NIT or what we're doing right now, but I think if you asked any of those players, which they would rather do, I think it's pretty obvious that you would choose that, and I think you make a great point, right? Like, if we're in the tournament, we won 3 or 4 more games, and probably at least a couple of them were, fun wins over really good teams. So yeah, probably feeling pretty good about that. But this is great. I definitely would choose the NCAA tournament, but since this is where we're at, I'm all in on this.
Yeah, it's fun. Like it's super fun to still get to look forward to a Cougar basketball game in late March. That's fun but yeah. So let's take a break. Then we'll come back. We'll maybe talk a little bit about what's going on in the NCAA tournament. A few programs of note to our audience, I think, that we could discuss. And I do want to talk about, the women's team. It seems like forever ago now, but I don't think we've recorded since then, or have we? Maybe we were recorded right before it. I don't think we've talked about it on the podcast. So I want to talk about that loss to Kansas State, in their season. So let's take a break and we'll come back and talk more hoops.
We are back.
But first, let's talk about beer, Jeff. I want to know what you're drinking.
I am drinking Winter Wolves Frozen Fresh Hop IPA. This one is brewed by Brothers Cascadia in collaboration with Varietal. It is interesting, to say the least.
Winter Wolves. What did you describe it as again? What kind of IPA?
A frozen fresh hop IPA.
Oh, yeah. So that's a new thing that's come in the last couple of years.
Yeah. So tell me what that means.
So you know how they flash freeze fish and stuff in Alaska? And it does a pretty good job of replicating a fresh fish when you thaw it out and cook it. It's the same sort of thing. They're flash freezing the fresh hops, and then they're able to keep in some of those characteristics of a fresh hop, and then they deploy them usually around this time in the spring, when so you can make fresh hop beers in a different part of the year.
Okay. All right.
Does it taste like a fresh hop beer?
It does. It definitely, at least this one, loses a little bit of that kind of earthiness that you get from the fresh hops.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. So, but it definitely has, kind of that fresh hop flavor, extremely, hop forward taste. So yeah, it's good. I like it. Cause I mean, we've established this before on the show that, I love fresh hop beers. That's one of my favorite things. Although I will say, I sometimes it's funny. I don't know how much I really, really love them, or how much I just love that you can only get them for, a couple of months, and it's something just really different.
Yeah.
On the palate. Right. And so, I'm not sure which of those two things it is. And I'm not sure how I feel about fresh hop season extending in an artificial way, Craig. I'm a little torn over this.
Oh, it's not rare enough for you anymore. You've lost
That's
interest.
Exactly it, man. I need my exclusivity in order for it to taste good. No, this is really good. I like it. What got my attention on it was both that it was, trying to do a fresh hop thing, and then also with Varietal, because Varietal makes, outstanding beers, and so I was excited to give it a go, give it a shot. And I'm
Brothers Cascadia,
it's good.
Also a solid brewery out of Vancouver. Can you tell who actually brewed it? Was it Varietal or Brothers Cascadia? Okay,
yeah, Brothers Cascadia. Yep. Brewed and
really,
canned by Brothers Cascadia.
When it's a collaboration, the brewers go to the other brewery. The regular brewer brews the beer while the other brewers get drunk. And even the guy that's brewing the beer probably having some beers. So it's like basically just a reason for them to drink beer together and talk about fun things to put in their beer. But really, it's just a reason for them to hang out. So
I like that.
Which, yeah, that's a nice little industry perk.
Yeah, we should make teaching like that. I should go get to go into somebody else's classroom and drink.
But you're really just sitting there and having a beer.
And then call it a collaboration. That's, I don't know. That'd be.
There's like a sign on the outside. It's like teaching collaboration, Mr. Newser and Mr. Johnson.
And I'm just like sitting in the back having a beer or two or three,
just yelling out stuff to do.
Yeah, yeah. Like they're talking about, Hamlet, and I'm like, what a loser. God, he's so whiny. Don't you guys think he's whiny? I don't know.
Oh, man. More collaborations. I got to get into brewing.
Little English joke. What about you, buddy? What are you drinking?
So I recently, I love my glassware.
Yes, I do.
There's one of my favorite sort of like beer, I guess you call her kind of an influencer type people. She's a cartoonist. Her name's M. Sauter, but she goes by Pints and Panels on Twitter, on Instagram, all that stuff. And then that's her website as well, Pints and Panels. She does these little like cartoon versions. She'll draw cartoon versions of like your favorite beers or, beer bars. And then she started out doing these like comics of like beer review comics. And she's like a Cicerone, like higher level Cicerone than most people, which is like the version sommelier for beer, basically. So she does these really great like beer education. She has like a cartoon Cicerone like study book. Like, so if you want to study for a Cicerone, she's like made it into a cartoon. Like it's fun. Like she does all sorts of different beer styles and hop styles and grain styles, all this stuff. She's great. Highly recommend. She's kind of funny. She's fun to follow. And so she released this glass. It's her sitting. So it's like, it's based on that meme of the dog, burning up in on fire. And he says, "This is fine." So a little background, there's this wave of slushy sours, slushy IPAs, where they just put a ton of fruit in them. Early on, especially when people didn't know what it was, I had a problem with cans exploding. And part of the reason is that these were so stuffed with unfermented fruits that the beer would start re-fermenting inside of the can. And so when like beer nerds would ship the cans to each other, or even sometimes the cans were just on a truck being delivered somewhere and they would just start exploding, because what happens when yeast starts eating sugar? It's the same reason why your bread rises, the same reason why beer has bubbles, is because it creates carbon dioxide, which expands the and like until the can explodes. So she is sitting there next to an exploded can. The stuff's everywhere, the beer's everywhere, and she's just saying, "This is fine." It's her little cartoon version of herself. So I got this can because I thought it was funny, because I'm not really into these slushy beers that much. I don't really seek them out. There's some brewers around here that make them, but no one makes them with quite the intensity as a brewery that was kind of popularized for these exploding cans and for these slushy beers, as 450 North, which actually has started distributing to Washington State, and you can get their slushy beers just like at a beer store, and which is where I got them, which is kind of scary, given that they've the slushy beers. Funny thing about it, they went through a few kind of scandals, you could say. One, the exploding beer cans, and then two, they were advertising these, they called them XL or XXL slushy beers as 8%. And then someone did like an independent test of the beer, and the beers were like coming in at 2.5%. They may have started with an 8% base beer, but they put so much fruit in it that it diluted the beer down. And so now, so these beers that I have now are listed. So that was when because they weren't selling their beer across state lines. I think they're where are they out of? Indiana. They weren't selling their beer across state lines. They were just selling it in Indiana. They weren't subject to the TTB review laws that so they didn't have to actually put ABV on their beer. If you go across state lines, your beer has to be correct within 0.3%. Oh, wow. Otherwise you could be subject to fines. So now I am assuming they have a better testing system because they actually list 5.3% for these beers. So I've got two of them. The first one I had is called Filet of Fruit. And it is, so it says right here, store called Drink Fresh, due to the large amount of fruit in this beer. So they're like, you have to do this. So it's called Slushy XXL Smoothie Style Sour Ale, which they take like a kettled sour base, like a Berliner Weiss, and then they shove a fuck ton of fruit in it. So this is with passion fruit, jackfruit, dragon fruit, star fruit, and grapefruit. So I poured it earlier, nice and thick. I've already drank this one. I had to take it out to Amanda and have her try it. It legit just tastes like a fruit smoothie. It tastes nothing like a beer. Like nowhere. She looks at me and she goes, "What ABV is this?" And I said, "It's listed as 5.3, although they've gotten in trouble for that before." So just tastes like a fruit smoothie. In no way tastes like a beer. Which is kind of funny, kind of crazy. It does apparently have 5%. I'm sure it's highly caloric for a 5% beer because it has all that fruit in it.
Yeah.
So it was good. Like it tasted good. Like it was a good taste. It was enjoyable to drink. It's not something I would go for if I was craving a beer. Like Amanda was like, maybe I would just have a smoothie instead. And I'm like, yeah, maybe. But I see the appeal. They taste good. I got my second one I opened is a little bit different. This is called Slushy Shake XXL. This one has it's listed as Smoothie Sour Ale with strawberry vanilla chocolate milkshake. So this one was even thicker. It is kind of like a reddish, slightly brownish tinge to it. This one I do not like as much. It tastes kind of weird. It doesn't taste like it does taste like a smoothie, but it's a little like more sugary tasting than the other one, probably because they put the chocolate and the vanilla in there and stuff. Not quite as good, but also very thick. I took a risk. I had it, I just had it sitting on the desk. I put koozies around it while I was waiting, but I risked it exploding in my office just for effect. But yeah, these beers, if you really like smoothies and you really like beer that doesn't taste anything like beer, which I say that without judgment, I look for these beers. 450 North or Sig does some that are pretty slushy-ish, and some other breweries, a lot of breweries are doing similar styles, but probably no one quite slushes them up as much as 450 North. So I picked up one of these at Peaks and Pints, one of these at Tacoma Boys. So, places with big beer selections in the area probably are getting these distributed to them. They're pretty weird. If you want to try something really weird or just get drunk on like fruit, I guess. If you're big into Spodie, maybe, just be right up your alley. Check it out. I'm going to have the worst hangover tomorrow, probably. I got a little bit of a gut ache in the first one, so we'll see how the second one goes down. I don't know why I did too. But yeah, slushy beers. Check them out. Don't let the cans get warm.
I dig it. Very nice.
All right, let's talk about what we saw in the NCAA tournament tonight.
God, this week just keeps getting better.
The number one team on KenPom went down.
Yes, it did.
So, last year, I was really fearful. Gonzaga, they were undefeated. They were going to go to the national championship, and they went to the national championship undefeated, and the national championship game was on my birthday. And I'm like, Gonzaga cannot finish an undefeated season on my birthday. Thank you, Baylor, Gross, for beating them. This year, we did not have to wait as long because Arkansas took down Gonzaga in the Sweet 16, just like the good old days. Early exits, which is what they used to be known for before they started running through these tournaments. Exit, Sweet 16. Like I said, Arkansas, shout out to Vince Grippi, who was pretty cautious about this matchup with Gonzaga in his article in the Spokesman this morning. Didn't quite predict that they would lose, but basically said that they're in trouble. Arkansas defends, and they're tough. Musselman's a good coach, and they made it difficult, and they got Chet Holmgren in foul trouble, and Gonzaga's guards had a tough time scoring, and that was wild to watch. It's always crazy when a number one seed goes down, and we had two of them go down today.
Yeah, the game against the Gonzaga game with Arkansas. I'm a huge Eric Musselman fan. I was a huge fan of his back before we hired Ernie Kent. He was on my list of guys that I would have been happy to see take over at WSU. So very excited to see him beat Gonzaga, because beating Gonzaga is always good. And it's every time I'm rooting against Gonzaga, I feel like I have to explain to way too many people why I don't like Gonzaga. And even when I do, I also feel like they don't really get it either. I'm like, well, you see, we used to play them in basketball and now we don't. And the reason we don't is because Mark Few is a big meanie head. And it's like, eventually I don't know, man.
Well,
they just look at me. They look at me like, that's it? That's why you don't like them? And I'm like, fuck yeah, that's why I fucking hate them. And they're like, you're weird. And
if you want another reason this week, and I'm always looking for reasons because it's fun, is that Spokesman Review, instead of having Colton Clark cover WSU spring football practice,
WSU beat reporter,
the WSU beat reporter, they sent him to San Francisco because apparently, the three other writers they had weren't enough.
Yeah, not
to
enough.
write stories about Gonzaga. Shout out to Colton for writing a remote gamer watching on TV in his hotel room. So it's not even it's hurting the coverage our teams are getting. Our football team is being impacted by Gonzaga's basketball team. So it's funny. Why do I have to like this team? Their great run has basically done nothing but negatively impact WSU. And you know what I care about most is WSU. So
that is right. They won't play us because they're afraid of Kyle Smith. And that is legit, by the way. Like I'm not spilling the tea on something that I shouldn't be. Like Kyle Smith was on his coach's show one week and said, Chaz now asked, hey, you guys ever resurrect that rivalry? And Kyle Smith goes, they won't play us. they won't schedule us. They won't play us. So it's, Mark Few knows, he coached against Kyle Smith when he was at USF. So he knows what he's getting himself into. Gonzaga is determined not to let us get any kind of foothold in Eastern Washington. So again, for the 1,000th time, fuck them. And I'm so happy that they lost tonight.
Peace.
Yes.
Woo pig suey.
So much fun. Arkansas is just fun to watch, man. They like I said, I love Eric Musselman. They have his personality. They just fight like hell. Eric Musselman is not for everyone. Like I saw Tim Booth, who's the AP reporter out of Seattle, mention like basically, man, what if Washington had gone for Eric Musselman? And I'm like, that dude's an acquired taste, man. Like I'm not sure he would have really fit in, in Seattle, but, he was a good fit at Nevada. He's a good fit at Arkansas. He's just fun as hell, man. His teams play hard and, they scrap and they fight, and that's certainly something that we can appreciate. So yeah, I was ecstatic to watch Gonzaga lose. The tears are just, unbelievably delicious. They sustain me, because I am that petty, just like Mark Few, who, drove drunk and then served a 3-game suspension that was all exhibition games. And, whatever, man, this is good. This is good. I love it. It makes me smile. I hate them, and I hope they lose. The only thing that makes me happier than them losing is Washington losing. But since Washington isn't playing anymore, this is as good as it gets, Craig. It's as good as it gets.
I root for Washington when they play Gonzaga, to be honest. So
yeah, I
see more benefit to WSU if Washington wins.
Yeah, I think that's true.
So I also crazy stuff. Arizona going down, but not crazy if the NCAA would just follow their own system that they're supposed to be using to evaluate teams.
Yeah.
So you get
lost to Houston.
Kind of poor Arizona, number 2 overall seed, gets the KenPom number 2 and net number 3 as the 5 seed in the Sweet 16, and Houston looks every bit those rankings in the tournament so far. Just has rolled through their first 3 opponents, including 2. Illinois got the brunt of that first. Like, congrats, Illinois. On your 4 seed, you get a 5 seed that's top 5 in net and KenPom. Congrats. And then Arizona gets the same thing. And man, so we already talked about Eric Musselman. That's a guy we could have hired before we hired Ernie. Kelvin Sampson's another guy we could have hired probably before we hired Ernie. And you know what? He coached here before, and any coach that takes WSU to that NCAA tournament is a Hall of Fame quality coach.
This is well established. So yeah, Kelvin Sampson can coach his fucking butt off, and he is proving it right now. He's been proving it for the last few years with the way Houston. They lost Marcus Sasser, their best player, one of the best players in the country, in 12 games in. And they just kept rolling, like they're a juggernaut right now, and they don't even have like one of their best players, and they lost it. They went for a long time without another rotation player. Like it's wild, and it sucks for Arizona. They could have gotten, some other, whatever the other 5 seed, like Wisconsin or something like that in this round, but instead they get Houston, who is as good as almost anyone in the field.
so pretty as good as anyone in the field. And they're bounced. So now we're down to one seed left. Yeah, Kansas. Watch out!
Just like everyone thought. Just like everyone predicted.
Yep, playing the luckiest team in the country, Kansas tomorrow. So good luck with that. But yeah, so that was a pretty wild Sweet 16. Duke had to go out and win and beat Texas Tech, and what was the other one? Villanova over Michigan.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but now let's switch. Let's talk about the women's tournament, specifically WSU's participation in said tournament. That was rough. They lose 50-40 to Kansas State after 24-17 halftime lead. Charlize had 20 of the 40 points. So, and then her sister had 9. So you're talking about outside of those two, the rest of the team had 11 points. Man, I know you have thoughts. You wrote a nice piece about that game, and so what happened? Like how did that happen? 50-40.
Well, just their offense failed them. I mean, that's really it. Like I don't think it's I don't think it's any more complicated than the offense was really bad. And I think that it's funny, we talk a lot about our small guards on the men's team and how, bigger guards on defense can give them trouble. That's kind of what happened against Kansas State. I don't think I gave enough credit to Kansas State's size on the perimeter. We talked a lot about, their zone defense. They ran this zone, and it was really obvious, just kind of watching the game, why they run that zone. Because, Aoka Lee, who's really, really is a very potent and powerful offensive force. She really just kind of does it through really truly through sheer size. She doesn't move very well, but she's really big. She's 6'6" and takes up a lot of space. She does a lot of things really, really well. About the only thing she doesn't really do well, and so it's when you start asking, well, how does a player that good end up at Kansas State? Well, you watch her play and you're like, okay, I can see that. Like, the things that she doesn't do very well, she just really doesn't move very well on defense. And okay, so she doesn't move very well on defense. You run a zone. She doesn't have to move very much. Okay, great. But as we know from watching our own men's team, zones are, as important to a zone as having, a rim protector is also having long guards on the perimeter that can make people do weird things and take difficult shots. Kansas State, I think, was a little longer on the perimeter than I realized heading into the game. And it really kind of caused our guards, some trouble. And so, we didn't really make shots. We did get some open looks. Joanna Tadare had probably the worst game of her life. She goes 0 for 10 and I think 0 for 7 from 3. Missed a wide open layup. It just was, and when I say wide open layup, I'm talking uncontested layup. Just blew it. So, it's awfully tough to win when really basically everybody not named Charlize was awful. And, you score 40 points, man, it is, I don't know how you win when you only score 40 points. That's pretty damn impossible. And, there were some things that they could have done differently. I think, Kansas State played some man-to-man where they really apparently hadn't really played it much all year. They mixed it in quite a bit. We did not take advantage of it as we should have, really should have, been prepared to put Lee in just, the pick and roll over and over and over again. And we didn't totally succeed at getting her in those situations when they were playing man to man. So that was kind of a missed opportunity. And then I think that, Etheridge did some things that were, I think when she looks back, she'll sort of regret, Bella went to the bench about halfway through the third quarter with her fourth foul, never came back in the game. And, Lee, as she kind of got going in the second half, a big part of that was they were able to just kind of throw it up and have her catch it. Didn't really work in the first half because we were really swarming her, and we just could not keep that energy up the entire game. Really, I think needed someone like Bella in there who's 6'3" and not just 6'3", but really long and pretty athletic. To maybe disrupt some of those entry passes, and she stayed on the bench for the rest of the game. So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of nitpicky anyway.
They made their run to push the lead out when Bella was on the bench in the first half. So that's I get what Cammie was thinking. And Bella it was a struggle for her in that zone to get any sort of looks because she has no jump shot. Like she's not going to shoot a 15-footer. She's not going to shoot a 12-footer.
Yeah. And Etheridge basically alluded to that. She didn't come right out and say, I couldn't play Bella because she has no jumper, but she kind of said, well, Bella works really hard and, she knows some things she needs to add to her game next year. Like that was the implication that, if she was in the game, they could not get any offense from her at all. Which, again, when you score 40 points, that's probably a legitimate argument. I think that Bella might have been able to help him, scrap some offensive rebounds on a day when nobody could make a shot. Like nobody can make a shot. So maybe Bella can, get her hands on some rebounds and help you there. But, again, I don't know, man. When you shoot that poorly, I just I don't know how much you can criticize much of anything because ultimately players have to make shots and they had their worst game of the year in that respect. So, bad timing. I don't as a coach, I know coaches will always think they could do something, but it didn't take me very long after that game to just kind of think I don't know. I mean, I can write 1,000 or 1,500 words on this stuff, but ultimately they just didn't shoot,
Yep. And, how do they get back to this place and then maybe win next year? Obviously, they're losing Crystal. They're going to need a point guard, a guard to sub in. They were already they're pretty thin. They basically, for the most part, play a 6, kind of 7-person rotation with Jessica Clark as the backup to Bella. Hopefully, Tara Wallach showed a lot of things this year. She did not shoot well, but she shoots with confidence. So I'm sure that she must be able to shoot. She has a lot of game. I could see her taking a step forward. Charlize kind of just Charlize is probably overall worse this year than she was her freshman year. And so if she can get back to that and surpass it, they could be very good again. They're getting Ula back. They're getting Johanna back, getting Bella back, Tara, most everyone's coming back. And we'll see what they can add. And see if some of the young guards can come in and help out. But they bring enough back next year to think they can get back here. And as long as you have Charlize, you believe that. But what you see in these tournaments is how do you get to be one of those top 16 teams? You get if you're a top 16 team, you get to host the first 2 rounds. And these were some great atmospheres. And instead, WSU is a huge difference. Instead, WSU is an 8 seed that has to fly and play at 8:30 a.m. their time. Even if they would have won, they would have had to play NC State in front of 10,000 NC State fans.
Right.
You watch they lost, but the Iowa crowd against Creighton was insane.
Yep.
There's the UConn crowd against UCF was just nuts. Just some great crowds. It's probably a little bit unbalanced that they do it that way, but the reason they do it that way is because these crowds they get are amazing. And you'll probably lose that if you go to a neutral site. So,
well, I think they used to do neutral sites.
Yeah.
And it was
yep.
something like that where basically not very many people were showing up. So,
yeah. And so, a WSU would have to go out and probably grab like an impact transfer or two to because they're, Cammie's a hell of a coach. I think they are definitely maximizing what they have, and to play with such a short bench, hard to be that elite of a team and sustain it enough throughout a season to get a top 4 seed. So I think they definitely would need to add to the team. You got to hope, 2 maybe 3 more years of Charlize, they can at some point, and get a season like that. Let's see if we can get people in Pullman. Like if we had WSU playing an NCAA tournament game in Pullman, that would be fucking amazing. So yeah, hopefully we can do that. It'll be interesting to see what they do this year, if they can, get any transfers or anything like that, bring something in, bolster this roster. So you don't have these games where, so you just have more people, so if someone's having a bad game, you got someone else to pick her up. So, Johanna doesn't have to sit out there and clank shots, and maybe can take a little bit more of a rest on the bench and think about it, and maybe refresh her head instead of playing 32 minutes out there. And, yeah, man, they were just,
that was the point that we thought we were at that point though.
Yeah.
Like that was the thing. Like we went to this tournament, we thought we were at that point. We were like, yeah, we're there. We've got other scorers, Tadair especially, like, after that game against Arizona, I think she scored 18 or 20 points against Arizona. Like we were like, yeah, we're there. We finally have some compliments. Crystal, is a little bit, obviously still a point guard, but, had been a little more assertive. I shouldn't say that. She's always been assertive about her offense, but had been a little more effective and efficient with her offense. And Bella, obviously, is someone we had talked about as well, being a little bit of an offensive force. So I don't know, man, it just felt like, okay, we got these options. And then they literally every last one of them disappeared in this game. And I don't know how much you read into that. Like, I don't know if I, feel like, oh man, we, need big, additions, or if it's just like, man, they just had one shitty game.
Well, I definitely don't think you can roll with like a basically 6.5 person rotation.
Yes, I think that's accurate. Yes, they do have some dead weight on the roster that maybe needs to explore their options in the transfer portal, and allow for some recruiting to take place to replace some of those bodies. But yeah, I mean, I think you're right about that. Point guard, I don't know what they do there. I don't know if the answer is on the roster or not, but that's a pretty gaping hole that Crystal leaves behind.
Yeah. So yeah, they have a freshman. She's quick, she's small, but we'll see. Crystal's very good defensively too. That's going to be a lot to replace.
Yep. Tough, lots of steals. Yeah. Really good player.
Really good man or person to person defense. So it's as long as they got Charlize, as long as they got Tara, and I think I only expect Bella to get better. I only expect Tadair to get better, and Ula. So I'll be bullish on them next year, especially if they add something. Because they added Tara this year, that was huge. They had another player like that could be huge again.
Yep.
So
she's one of those players that needs to take, I think, a pretty big step forward.
Yeah.
And I think she's totally capable of it. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. Well,
definitely a bummer, but the game was at this point almost 2 weeks ago, so I'm kind of over it now. But yeah.
That's it sucks when you have it at like 8:30 in the morning. It's over at 10:30, and
it wasn't almost 2 weeks ago. God, why does it feel like?
No, it was just last weekend.
I know, it feels like forever ago. I don't know.
Yeah, we just haven't recorded this week. It does feel like forever because WSU's played like 3 games, I think, in between. I mean, the men have played 3 games. You know, we watched like a ton of NCAA tournament games. Like, so much has happened.
I think that's it.
You know, you got the CBI championship, all that stuff, you know. But yeah, it's I hope they can do it again. You know, I'd love to see them take that next step, get a win the tournament. That's a lot easier if you have a higher seed. So, you know, just be even better in the regular season, and get a higher seed. But yeah, that's it. That's all today. I am, you can follow me at the Craig Powers on Twitter, at Craig W. Powers on Instagram, if you like pictures of beer and me at Sounders games. Which is kind of all it is right now. And then Jeff, you can follow at Pod versus Everyone on Twitter. If you want to email us, I haven't even looked at the email. Anyone says email? Want to email us? Podcast versus Everyone at gmail.com. Yeah, I guess with that, I will say go Cougs.
Go Cougs, Craig. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Get vaccinated still.
And maybe even triple boosted soon, I think.
Maybe.